So here we are yet again talking about nu metal. This is an ignorant guide to nu metal by Coolea. I've seen some of his videos recommended before, but I don't know anything about him or his content. I don't know what to expect from this, but we'll see. All I see here is this sweaty fellow here. I feel like this sweaty guy is the type of person that shows up on my DMs and he's like, bro, please acknowledge Seven Dust, bro. Acknowledge how important Seven Dust is, bro. Come on, please just acknowledge how important and influential they are. Come on, bro, please. I feel like that's this guy, but let's see what this is.
Are you either a sweaty 40-year-old with hair that's been unwashed since 1999, or a 19-year-old e-girl with hair that feels unwashed due to the amount of cheap hair dye it's been subjected to? Are you an avid...
I like it. I mean, that's kind of the two big fan bases for nu metal right now, right? It's either the like washed up 40-year-old that doesn't realize it isn't 1999 anymore, or, you know, the TikTok thought, right? It's kind of one or the other.
Consumer of current trends and social media, but too scared to admit it, so you attach yourself to what's seen as the most edgy current trend. Have you been clickbaited into watching this video due to the e-girl image I use? Well, nu metal is the perfect genre for you.
All right, well, here we go. I like it. I think he's off to a good start. I like where he's headed with this.
So what is nu metal, and why on earth is it suddenly the preferred subgenre of music for people who look like this? The answers to those questions will come in due time, don't you worry. The answer to the second question...
I have like 10 videos because you guys know I will milk nu metal for all the content I have, and I have like 10 videos answering that exact question, but I want to see what he has to say about it.
Nu metal is the combination of heavy metal with various different genres such as hip-hop, funk, industrial, and grunge. You may be thinking some of those genres really shouldn't be combined with heavy metal.
Wait, who is this gorgeous man? I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything you said because I just couldn't help but lose my train of thought as soon as his eyes met mine. And I said, I'm sorry, what? Come again? I didn't hear anything you said.
Well, if you think that, you'd be correct. That's nu metal. One thing that remains relatively unique about the guitars within nu metal is the focus on rhythm as opposed to complexity or atmosphere.
Yep.
This often results in the complete removal of any guitar solos, with the solos being replaced by syncopated, thumpy riffs, as well as abysmal tracksuits and lyrical spiritual individuals.
And, of course, you got to have the bassist playing his, like, 6-string Ibanez bass, or these days it'd be a Warwick, I guess, but back then an Ibanez bass with his fingers like this, either super up high like this, like the guy in Alien Ant Farm, or it has to be down around his knees and he's like bent over like a fentanyl zombie. One way or the other. That's the thing with the nu metal bassists. You can't play nu metal bass just, you know, in the sort of normal middle range. It's either got to be super high or super low, one or the other.
Of course, the guitars are drowned in as much distortion as possible. This is done on purpose. You gotta make sure the listener's eardrums blow out before they're subjected to this dude trying to rap. Although the guitars follow standard metal conventions for the most part, the other instruments more so follow the themes of the other genres within this witch's cauldron of cringe. At times, drums are influenced by funk and hip-hop, adding a bit of swing and rhythm to the music, and other times they just say f*** it and play blast beats. Bassists, they're consistently pretty goddamn funky. I don't have a joke, they just be funky.
They just be funky. Well, it's interesting how many different flavors of nu metal there are. Like, sort of what he's pointed out here is there's sort of, you know, Slipknot is more of like the death metal-y influenced flavor of it. Limp Bizkit, more of the hip-hop version of it. Korn would be, I would say, maybe more Korn, or I don't know, Korn's just Korn. They're sort of doing their own thing, but there is the grunge-influenced version of it, like Cold and Flaw and Stained and all that kind of stuff. You want to call that nu metal. You know, really what I'm trying to say is that nu metal is a rich cultural tapestry full of nuance, and it's like the layers of the onion just continue to reveal themselves with nu metal. The gift that keeps on giving.
Another key element of nu metal instrumentation is the complete disregard of what instruments actually work within metal. Turntables, samplers, baseball bats, you name it, might as well chuck it in there. I'm sure the mix will be fine. I don't want to have to do this, but we're going to have to cover vocals. For the most part, the vocals follow a pretty generic metal style. Growling, screaming, soy singing, all pretty standard.
My favorite part of the nu metal vocals is the part where he's like whispering under his breath, like, don't mess with me because I'm crazy and I might snap. That's my favorite aspect of nu metal, where the guy's like, I'm crazy.
What remains relatively unique for the genre is the fact that upon listening to a song, you have about a 60% chance to hear somebody who looks like this rap some of the most abhorrent bars known to man. Lyrics are relatively similar to grunge and other more nihilistic subgenres, with topics such as pain, angst and betrayal, although nu metal tackles these issues pretty directly, with not as much subtlety. Lyrics can delve into a much more cringe direction though, with some bands sounding like a group of redneck cavemen grunting about alcohol, women and breaking stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that nu metal lyrics probably, I don't know, I was going to say probably the most cringe of any subgenre of metal. And then I remember that power metal exists. I think power metal is the most cringe subgenre, right? But nu metal is definitely up there. Yeah, the mad at daddy genre. I tried to search my brain for nu metal vocalist whispering before the song gets big and ended up with 1,000-Foot Crutch, send help. Brother, you don't need my help. If 1,000-Foot Crutch is at the top of your mind, you don't need my help with anything, brother. You're doing just fine in this world. God bless you.
As opposed to anything with substance. After that overly long description of a genre that's actually pretty easy to understand, let's delve into the history and find out exactly how this genre came to be.
Let's find out.
Nu metal is kind of just a mashup of loads of different that should probably be left at least 5 meters apart. Exploring every artist that laid certain groundworks for the genre would take a very long time, and since this genre has had a resurgence in recent times for some reason, we have a lot to cover, so let's get going. I think we should cover the instrumentation first and get to the lyrical, spiritual individuals a bit later. The first genre to emerge that would really inspire nu metal would be thrash metal.
Thrash metal. Now, here's my question. It was my understanding from watching Bradley Hall's videos is that the letter T went extinct in the UK several hundred years ago, but now I hear this guy can say the T just fine, and so I'm wondering, what happened? Where did this guy find all these T's?
First, and get to the lyrical, spiritual individuals a bit later. The first genre to emerge that would really inspire nu metal would be thrash metal.
But he can't say L, so it's a nu metal. So maybe he traded his L's for T's. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I would take that trade. I think the letter T is superior to the letter L, so I think that's a good trade.
Although most of the good bits were completely ignored. All the complicated bits, the solos, the atmosphere, that guitar heavy, drum fast, boom, yes. Anthrax would be particularly influential with their collaboration with the hip-hop collective Public Enemy, which actually saw members of Anthrax...
Man, it's wild to me how many people still bring this song up. This song is from, what, 1990, I think, or 91? And it's a cool song, but... it is wild to me how much people are fixated on this song. Like, you know, anytime I mention anything about like trap metal or something, like, oh, bro, this is nothing. Suicide Boys is nothing new. Public Enemy and Anthrax did Bring the Noise in 1990. I'm like, okay, number one, don't be that guy. Number two, if you think Suicide Boys has anything to do with fucking Bring the Noise, I don't know what to tell you.
Poorly rapping alongside Public Enemy. Although the use of hip-hop within rock music has been around since 1986, with Run DMC's collaboration with Aerosmith and the Beastie Boys sampling the likes of Black Sabbath and AC/DC, nothing quite captured the essence of what nu metal would become, quite like Anthrax and Public Enemy.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't think that song had anything to do with nu metal. I don't think so. I like rap rock is not the same thing as nu metal, and I just don't think that song had anything to do with nu metal, but what do I know?
At the same time, the development of alternative metal was sprinkling a few elements into the eventual nu metal potion. Bands like Helmet would inspire the down-tuned riffs, whilst Faith No More would inspire the prevalence of bass alongside a lot of the vocal stylings of nu metal. By that I mean bands like Primus and Mr. Bungle added a little bit of funk into the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, Korn has talked before a lot about how Mr. Bungle was such a big influence on them.
Rage Against the Machine would deliver a sound more akin to the future nu metal practitioners, with rhythmic guitar experiments alongside funky beats and Zach De La Rocca's signature hip-hop inspired Political Fury.
I hate, it's probably true. It brings me pain when people associate Rage Against the Machine with nu metal. I'm sure it brings them even more pain. But it's probably fair.
So at this point we have all the elements, everything that's needed in theory to create nu metal.
We got the elements.
So what actually started it all off? Korn would grease up their knotted locks, slap on the purple tracksuit,
and
release
100%.
their self-titled debut in 1994, completely spitting on the glam and hair metal of the years beforehand, instead deciding to take the rumblings of rap metal and twisting it into the most abhorrent concoction. They combined down-tuned, sludgy riffs, distinct vocals and a focus on rhythm that can only be seen from a band that didn't actually grow up on metal.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Korn is like, I mean, obviously they have whatever their influences are, but nothing else sounded like them. Like, it's really hard to describe just how strange and different Korn sounded. Like, I would say maybe more than anything else that I've ever heard in any genre, Korn was the band that I was just like, what in the fuck is this? Like, I have no idea what to make of this when they came out. Obviously, they do have their influences and whatnot, but I kind of feel like they just kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't really feel like anything really led up to them where you're like, okay, yeah, this makes sense that Korn came after that. They were just like, what in the fuck is this? This makes no sense to me. And I think a lot of other people felt the same way, which is why everyone ripped them off.
Instead being fans of goth, funk and hip hop. POD's Snuff the Punk actually released earlier that same year and would feature a lot of the stylings of nu metal, including a lot of the hip hop elements ignored by Korn. Shortly after nu metal embarrassingly thrust its way into a limited amount of mainstream attention, Cold Chamber would release their debut album alongside one of the worst music videos I've ever seen.
Yeah, Cold Chamber's a bit rough. I saw them in like 1998, I think. They toured with Bloodlet, and that was a little rough.
Cold Chamber would basically take what Korn did and make it a lot worse, although their vocals are more attuned to what nu metal would become in the following years. 1997 would also see the release of prominent albums from two of nu metal's powerhouses, although they were literally nothing alike: Red Hat Band and Goth Girl Band.
Goth Girl Band. How strange. Like, the trajectory of Deftones to be like, you know, the big titty goth GF band is still like, it's just wild to me how that happened. Working with Jonathan was really enlightening as to how they got their sound. He's not a metal dude at all. He just like funk, oldies, post-punk, and death metal. He doesn't really like metal as a whole that much. Yeah, I don't get the sense that anybody in Korn really is like a metal person. Like, they made music that I guess you could call metal, and it was heavy, but I don't think that anyone in the band is like super into metal necessarily, right?
Limp Bizkit's debut album would take the nu metal formula and make it really stupid. Around the Fur by Deftones would produce some of the best riffs within the genre if you consider Deftones to actually be nu metal. As opposed to inserting funk and hip hop into the metal formula, Deftones would experiment with more shoegazy type and kind of got grouped into nu metal.
I find it interesting that people now want to retcon Deftones as not a nu metal band. Like, if they're not nu metal, what are they? You know, I mean, nu metal is a very wide umbrella. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything from Slipknot to Deftones to, you know, Static X to Linkin Park that don't really sound alike, but they're all nu metal bands. So I don't know. Why are people so resistant to include Deftones as nu metal? I don't know why.
Due to the popularity aligning with the popularity of nu metal time frame wise. What you may notice about nu metal is that everyone seems to be wearing really stupid outfits.
Mudvayne,
red cap,
God.
purple jumpsuit, whatever the f this is, despite many of these outfits being the preferred.
Also very interesting to me how Mudvayne has been retconned as a credible band, which they most certainly were not in 2001.
Clothing of the musicians, it still held a prominent role in the presentation of the bands. Korn's original look stood out from a lot of what was happening in metal beforehand, resulting in more attention for the band. This led to a bit of a phenomenon. As outfits got more silly, each band had to one-up each other, getting progressively sillier. The band that would take this to its absolute extreme would be
Oh, and then of course there's the Mushroomhead stands that will always show up to remind you that actually Mushroomhead did this many years before Slipknot, and they were actually way better than Slipknot. Okay, yes, Mushroomhead did do it before Slipknot, but there is no world in which Mushroomhead is a better band than Slipknot. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. Mushroomhead, mid at best.
You see, during the late 90s, there were only two options for Midwesterners, either or dressing up in Halloween costumes and breaking things.
Oh, you forgot the Eminem flavor of Midwesterners, like the hood white guys wearing like a Sean John sweatsuit at the bus stop and trying to fight you. That's like the dominant flavor of like Midwestern white people in the 90s.
Slipknot chose the latter and opted to dress in jumpsuits and masks, assigning each themselves a number to be referred to by fans rather than the name. This gimmick alongside their debut album would thrust the band into the nu metal scene. The album combined a prominent death metal influence
with a chin strap, yes. Chin strap is mandatory.
And, let's say, interesting percussion. Although around this time copycat bands were beginning to water down and oversaturate the genre, it still remained interesting, with a colourful cast of edgelords producing a sound specifically for the ears of
colourful
teenagers
cast of
who opted to wear
edgelords.
two stitched together tents as opposed to fitted jeans. Some of the music was pretty heinous, but it aligned itself within the rebellious.
I mean, the honest truth is that there's basically like four really good nu metal bands, right? You've got Slipknot, Korn, Deftones, Linkin Park, Those are like legitimately great bands. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Deftones, but they're legitimately a great band. And then after that, it falls off real hard, real fast, because after that you've got, Limp Bizkit. So five really good bands. And then after that, you've got Coal Chamber and Mudvayne, which are like kind of mid. And then you get to like Primer 55 and Skindred and shit like that. The quality level falls off very, very, very fast in nu metal. Yeah, and then we're talking about Taproot. And Taproot is like better than average, right? That tells you how bad nu metal was in general. So I feel like when people say they like nu metal, they're really saying, okay, and we can put System of a Down in there too. I think they suck, but whatever. Objectively, System of a Down is a good band. People don't really like nu metal as a genre. They like one or more of the like 6 good bands in the genre, right? I mean, there's nobody, although some of these kids on TikTok these days, I'm excited to see they are getting into like American Head Charge and Flaw, respect. But, nobody's into that stuff, right? They're into those like 5 or 6 good bands. And that's it.
It's counterculture enough for it to remain charming and not too annoying. The universe remained calm until a frosted tips force to be reckoned with entered the music scene, something none of us expected: Linkin Park. Linkin Park's debut album would see huge success within the
and Linkin Park came late also. Their first album came out in 2000, I believe, which was kind of late to the game.
Selling debut album since Guns N' Roses, and we know how good that band is. Linkin Park would take the nu metal sound and further popify it. What added to their popularity was their look. No purple tracksuit, no smelly rubber mask. They essentially
they look
looked like
normal.
a boy band and played into this clean.
They did look like a boy band. It's true.
The mainstream success of this poppier side of nu metal left little breathing room for the contemporaries, who many of which were unwilling to tone down the sound to appeal to the audience, who are now more used to the sound of bands like Linkin Park.
Linkin Park, legitimately great band. Like, I would say maybe more than any of these other bands, I think really transcended nu metal. I mean, these are just great songs in any genre. Their first album, I guess you could call nu metal, but after that, they kind of really, just transcended that, and that's the reason why they're so popular. So Linkin Park actually killed nu metal. I mean, you could make that argument because there's nobody that was coming along after them that was going to do it bigger or better than they did. So yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that they did kill nu metal.
What added to the downfall of the genre were the all too familiar drug issues affecting many of the genre's biggest bands, leading to breakups and a decline in quality. Audience members also started to look at the genre with more disgust, with many individuals taking Limp Bizkit far too seriously and targeting their distaste specifically towards Fred Durst and his style of lyricism. And although System of a Down would release some amazing music in the coming years, the commercial success of nu metal albums was drastically decreasing, putting the final nail in the coffin for nu metal. Many bands would continue down the same path, with varying levels of success. Limp Bizkit would perform relatively terribly sales-wise, Korn would do decently, and Slipknot would go on to be one of the biggest metal bands in the world. So that brings us to the modern day.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, a lot of those bands fell off pretty hard, pretty quickly. Kind of interesting. Korn's an interesting one because, I mean, Korn for sure created the whole genre, and everybody likes Korn, but I feel like Korn, in a way, has like the least currency of all the big nu metal bands now, which is kind of weird. In my opinion, Korn, I mean, they're the fucking OG granddaddies of the whole thing. There would be no nu metal without Korn. So in my opinion, they got to be number one to me. But I feel like even though everyone loves Korn, you don't hear them come up as much as you do, I would say, Deftones and Slipknot.
With nu metal being the most relevant it has been in the last 20 years. But why is that? Well, mainly TikTok. One person posts an unfunny or thirst trap video with a song, that spreads, more people listen to it, more people use it, so on, so on.
I mean, the answer to pretty much every
social weapon. But why specifically
music trend now is TikTok, right?
The best way to explain this is to look at the current state of hip-hop. Look at this dude, this human incarnation of the coronavirus. They all have very specific and over-the-top looks. People often attach themselves to the image of a person.
Well, and a lot of them are nu metal fans. Maybe not Island Boys, but Uzi obviously is a nu metal fan. I would imagine Lil Peep probably liked nu metal too. So 6ix9ine definitely did. So that's a good point. Nu metal had a significant influence on the current generation of rap over the last 5 years or so.
Which explains the popularity of nu metal, with many prominent members having over-the-top looks and images. Many Zoomers have probably seen a goth girl dancing to Korn and immediately had their ADHD-riddled brain hyperfixate on the eye-catching and honestly extremely appealing look of many of the bands involved within the genre. It also may be because...
When they said that vaccines caused autism, I poo-pooed, I laughed, I brushed it off. I was like, no way. But now, look at this. Look at Gen Z. I take it all back. The popularity of nu metal in the year of our Lord 2023 is proof that the vaccines did indeed rot an entire generation's brain. There we have it. It's proof right here, people. I didn't make it up. It's the only explanation for the popularity of nu metal. But there it is. An ignorant guide to nu metal, courtesy of Coolea. Check it out. Give him a sub. If you thought this video was cool, I think he's cool. I think it's good content. And join us next time for more discussion of everybody's favorite genre, nu metal. Don't mess with me because I'm crazy and I might snap.